English by the Nature Method, Chapter 22, the 22nd chapter. A good idea. Our three young friends have come to their teacher's house again to learn English. They have been working at their studies for an hour and are now having a cup of coffee. Brown, Mr. Miller, this evening when I was walking home from work, I thought of the idea you told us about the other evening to speak nothing but English when we are together. I said to myself that when the four of us have talked English for some time, it would be a good thing to try to talk to some English people. But where do you find English people to talk to? I asked myself. I couldn't think of an answer to that question at once, but when I was sitting at supper, I thought of this idea. Why not make a trip to England? Then there would be enough English people to talk to. What do you think of that idea, Mr. Miller? I think it would be a very good idea if you could all make a trip to England together. Storm, I have another question to ask you, Mr. Miller. Do you think that you could come with us yourself? Wood, yes, you know England and the English so well, but perhaps you do not want to go to England again, because you have been there so many times already. Mr. Miller, perhaps and perhaps not. I shall have to think more about it. You know, I have a wife and a child to think of, but you have no wives to think of. Yet, as you said yourself, Wood, I have made many trips to England, so there are few places where I have not been before. But, on the other hand, it's several years since I was there last time, and since then, many things have changed. That is, they are not the same now as they were then. You know that most people think that the English are very conservative. That is, they like old ideas better than modern ones, and are not glad to change things. I do not think that people are right in this. The English of today are not the same as the English of some years ago, so there will also be new things for me to learn on another trip to England. I must say that of all the foreign countries I have seen, I have found England the most interesting. Storm, I have never been to a foreign country before. I have spent all my holidays in our own country. The last 5 years I've spent my summer holidays with my parents in the country, where they have a small house near a lake. But it would be a good thing to try something new this year. Of all foreign countries, I am most interested in England, just like you, Mr. Miller. If we make the trip, we must visit the British Museum one of the first days we are in London. It is one of the greatest museums, not only in Europe, but in the whole world. I have seen a picture of the museum, and I know that inside it there are so many things which we must see. I should like to spend several hours there every day. Mr. Miller, and you can. I know a hotel in the same part of the town as the British Museum. I have always lived there when I have been in London. It is a good hotel and cheap too. So if we go, I think we will live there as long as we are in London. Then you can visit the British Museum as often as you like, Storm. It's only a few minutes' walk from the hotel. The first 7 or 8 days we could spend in London itself. There are many things to be seen in a big town like London, so that a week would not be too much for us to spend in London itself. Then we could visit some places just outside London, where the Thames is not the same dirty river as in the town itself. This is the river. I often spent a whole day on the River Thames in summer, when the weather was fine. There are small steamers to take you from place to place. This is a steamer. It's not very far from our hotel to the river, so that we could go down there one day and look at the steamers. Mrs. Miller, I think the idea you have been talking about just now is a very good one. I should like to go with you on the trip to England, but I can't. We can't take the boy on a trip like that. He is too small. Just think of him on a steamer. He and I will spend those few weeks with my parents. They will be only too glad to have us. You know what grandparents are like. They always think that their grandchildren are the best in the whole world. The boy's grandmother lets him do everything he wants to, and his grandfather buys so many things for him to play with that I don't know what to do with them. It would be so good for the boy to be at a farm in the country. He can play outside in the sun all day, and we shall both have a good time. Mr. Miller, well, if you feel like that, my dear, I shall be glad to go. It would be good to see old England again with these young men. Storm, we are glad to hear that. Well, boys, it's time to go home, I think. Oh, it's cold outside, and look, there is snow falling. One doesn't think of that when it is so warm inside.